Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of thecinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and today we're saddling up to wrangle an unidentified flying piece of discourse that is consuming every inch of the internet. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're reviewing Nope. We're going to start, as we always do, with our icebreaker question before jumping into a spoiler-free review and verdict on the film, and then we'll conclude the show by going really in-depth on a spoiler discussion. And I will say, with this movie, we're probably going to spend a lot more time in the spoiler section than the spoiler-free section, so setting the expectation, we're going to be in spoilers a lot, because there's actually a lot of fun surprises in this film. With all that said, we couldn't be talking about a brand new Jordan Peele movie without some of the best guests around the globe. And by that I mean, I'm welcoming back LaRon Chapman, award-winning Oklahoma filmmaker, longtime friend on and off the show. This is something of a special discussion for LaRon and I because our first podcast together was Get Out way back in 2017. LaRon Chapman, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to talk about Nope with you.
Absolutely. This is, as you said, a very full circle moment. Peele brought us together, and Peele will bring us apart.
Oh, Peele's going to break us apart? Oh, no. Oh, no. Please don't turn Shyamalan.
No, I know. That's my fear. My fear is that he'll be a Shyamalan, like, knock it out of the park 3 times, and then all of a sudden, like, what's going on here?
Where
are we going? What's happening?
We only have to worry if in front of press screeners they start saying, don't reveal the secrets of the film. They worked very hard on this. I'm looking at you, M. Night Shyamalan, in Glass. There was like a card that was like, don't tell anyone what you see in this movie. Don't ruin it.
Listeners, as you can hear, we're also rejoined by Daniel Bokemper of thecinematropolis.com. Also, recently voted into the Oklahoma Film Critics Circle. Daniel Bokemper, welcome back to the show, and congratulations.
Can't wait to disappoint people. Criticism. Yes. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, especially to be on a film like this, to talk about a film like this.
Well, it wouldn't be the same without the best guests around the table, I have to say. Again, these discussions, people, they have power. They can form lifelong film friendships like I have with LaRon now, thanks to Get Out and then Us, and now here we are with Nope. And Daniel, how many movies have we talked? How many like sci-fi horror movies have we talked about together?
A bunch. Too many to I could count them on my hand, but I don't know.
All right, listeners, but before we get to today's review, I just wanted to quickly note that if you do enjoy this unidentified flying discourse that we're going to wrangle today, you can support us in our mission to get these photos, to wrangle this UFO or whatever you want to call it, by leaving us a 5-star rating on your preferred podcast app, most notably Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It is the best way you can support the show. So if you enjoy the conversation you have today, take that 30 seconds and give us a rating. I'm begging you, please do it. It's very important. With all that said, gentlemen, we are going to ask an icebreaker question related to the unidentified flying object, also known as a UFO. What is your favorite film or TV sequence featuring a UFO? LaRon Chapman, I'm starting with you.
Okay, so I feel like the most obvious choice here is Roland Emmerich's Independence Day, because that White House explosion sequence still slaps. And I'm not referring to Will Smith at the Oscars. So not sure if this is really like a UFO film per se, but it's in the wheelhouse. But Arrival is probably my recent fave of this kind of film. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think this and Arrival have a lot in common in terms of how they take a thing you think you know, and we're like, but it's not that thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. Great picks, LaRon Chapman. Daniel Bokemper, how about you?
I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's very memorable because I didn't catch this film, a very classic cult film, for the first time until very recently, and that's Alex Cox's Repo Man, I believe, from 1984. There is an alien throughout the film, but in a way you kind of pull behind the UFO curtain. You see how the UFO is made, and despite that, the flying object is not really identifiable. It is a Chevy Malibu, but by the end of the film, it's bright green, and it's flying our main character across the LA skyline and into space, and you still don't know, again, what the hell is going on. But it's great. It's also a reminder of how much I've been reading a little bit about the making of the film and just learning how much a film in its entire plot can just pivot out of necessity. And that ending that ultimately leads to a UFO is one of those many pivots that resulted from, rolling with the punches with the production companies. So I'm going to say Repo Man.
Repo Man, that is an unexpected selection, but I like it nonetheless. I'm going to go with, let's say 2 and 1 not UFO, but 1 aliens, because I just like to talk about the movie. Starting with the UFOs, of course, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, classic film. Combined, not only did it subvert the expectations of the time, which is, oh no, the aliens are here to blow us up and evaporate us. It still had a little bit of that going on, but it was Steven Spielberg doing a fundamentally different take on aliens alongside E.T. Now, the difference being is I really don't like E.T. I actually think it's very overrated, and most people hate me that I think that thing, but it never really clicked with me. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, however, a favorite. I love it. I think it's subversive. I think it's emotional. I think it's good stuff, and I love the way, the way they have to learn how to communicate with the aliens, so to speak. Just good stuff. Really good storytelling. Had that also had that sense of awe when the UFO shows up, where you're like, it's majestic, right? Because if we saw a UFO in real time, it's like I'm simultaneously afraid, but also like this thing in front of me is
entranced.
I'm entranced by how it sort of breaks the laws of physics and science as we know it, right? Along those lines, I think a movie that recently did that very well, I guess it's sort of a spoiler, but 2019's The Vast of Night, which is an indie film directed by Andrew Patterson. I don't know if he still resides in Oklahoma. A filmmaker that has Oklahoma roots, also co-written by Craig Sanger, friend of the show. Again, sort of like a throwback to a different type of alien movie, like almost like a World of Worlds, like where because there's radio is such a big part of it, and like radio communication's a big part of it. Like that small town, there's an invasion happening, but once you encounter the UFO at the end of the movie, again, it's a source of awe and just majesty, and wow, humans are so small and insignificant, right? I love that. Like this, again, transcends the laws of human nature. Just love it. Great movie on Amazon Prime right now. Check it out. And lastly, because I like to talk about this movie, The Faculty. It's a favorite. There's no UFOs in it technically, but man, it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But in the late 90s, we get introduced to so many beloved actors. We get Josh Hartnett. We get Elijah Wood. I mean, just
Jordana Brewster.
Oh man, just what an incredible cast. Jon Stewart plays the science teacher.
Yeah, don't trust high school teachers.
Never.
And I don't know, just the way it's like when you're in high school, this is how you feel. You're like, I'm an outcast, and you're looking for other outcasts, and all the teachers are actually like out to get you. It's great.
I love that.
Oh man, great movie. Even despite the fact that it basically encourages drug usage pretty blatantly. But you know what? It's we're gonna ignore that. We're gonna ignore that.
It was the 90s, different time.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, what is your favorite film or TV sequence featuring a UFO? You can let us know by emailing thecinemetropolis.com or by sending us a message on Twitter at The Cinematrop or on Facebook at facebook.com/The Cinematropolis. With all that said, though, let's go ahead and jump into our spoiler-free review of Nope.
Did you know that the very first assembly of photographs to create a motion picture was a 2-second clip of a black man on a horse? And that man is my great-great-grandfather.
Great.
There's another great-grandfather. But that's why back at the Haywood Ranch, as the only black-owned horse trainers in Hollywood, we like to say, since the moment pictures could move, yeah, skin in the game.
According to IMDb, Nope is described as the residents of a lonely gulch in inland California bear witness to an uncanny and chilling discovery. God, that is a great synopsis. It's accurate, it's vague, and it makes me want to know what the hell happens next. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a great synopsis, IMDb. Good job. You hit it every once in a while. Still bitter about the Jurassic World Dominion synopsis that lied blatantly to us. So a couple fun facts about this. This is Jordan Peele's third feature film as the director. So again, He's been around for a long time. He's produced a lot of projects since the success that he saw with Get Out. This is only the third film he's directed, though. It also grossed $44 million in its opening weekend, a little less than, I think a little more than Get Out, but a little less than Us. But overall, it is still pretty impressive. It set a record for, I think, post-pandemic, the highest grossing opening weekend for an original IP. So that's pretty great. So overall, I would say that box office success. But what about the movie itself? Because I feel like there's been a somewhat divided, largely positive sort of conversation about the movie online. So I'm actually going to start with you, Daniel Bokemper. What did you think of Nope?
Yeah, and I'm glad that's a twofold question because I am of two minds of the film. I think there are so many great individual sequences, and I think it's a very, very strong original idea, an original concept, and a great creature design, which we'll get into more a little bit later. I do question if some of those sequences are wound together, quite as tightly as something like Get Out, maybe even Us, which I think is a bit more of an analogous. I found myself comparing Us to this film, even though they're still vastly different, more so than Get Out. Get Out, I think, almost works independently of those for very good reason. But I think with, on a technical level, again, there's those thrilling sequences. You have great sound design. I do think the cinematography itself is really great, and that lends itself to a great film-going experience. And then there are very strong performances. It's just sometimes there's so many strong characters that I don't think they necessarily have room to breathe, or they're delivered and you have this very, 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 strong introduction into them, but then some of them start to wane a little bit. Again, it's just not quite wound as tightly as I think I wanted it to be, or what I was kind of expecting from Us. But there is still the intrigue. There, again, is still great character design. It is very, very original for what it is, and I think that's worth lauding. I also think we're kind of getting spoiled on eye creatures. We had Dune and the sandworms, and I think this creature we get here again isn't too different. And then I think the theme, the idea of do we assert any form of control, or do we even have any control of the things we observe, and do we even have a right to attempt to harness them and use them for our entertainment? I think that's a very, very strong message. But again, it's just, there's a little incohesion. It did feel a little long. And there were some instances where I thought there may have been maybe a bit of like a missing scene almost, or something like that. It got to a certain point and it just didn't, I don't know, it just didn't all feel like it meshed super well at the end of the day. But again, overall, I do think it had some very powerful sequences. When it does strike you, you do get a bit of a sense of awe, which I think any good science fiction film, any film in general, should accomplish. So it does have that. I just think the narrative was maybe a little bit weaker overall.
All right. So Daniel Bokemper, thanks so much for your quick review there. LaRon Chapman, what did you think of Nope?
I loved it. I thought it was creepy. I thought it was funny. I thought it was thoughtful. I think it is going to be Peele's most divisive film for sure, because I think so much of the story is left up to interpretation, and how much work the audience has to do post-viewing to really kind of put those pieces together. But for me, that's an asset for the film, and not a critique. But I, as you mentioned, I really loved the cinematography. Those night shots are incredible. I found myself getting lost in the vastness of it and like searching for the terror in the sky. And I like the clarity of the night shots, which you don't normally get from night shots. So the lens there is just it's really beautiful. And also one thing that I thought was worth noting is like, this is like a major genre film that's featuring a very diverse, ethnically diverse cast. You got black mainstream protagonist. You have an Asian character, and then also worth noting is that which is not, it's lightly touched on. It's not really elaborated on, but Keke Palmer's character is also a queer woman. So and putting those characters kind of in the forefront of a major genre film just felt revolutionary to me, because we just don't see movies like that, or we're not featured in that way, So it was really cool to have that anchored through the whole thing. So,
all right, So Lauren Chapman, very positive on the film. I'm pretty middle of the road on this one, and what I mean is the things that work overwhelmingly work for me. Man, Jordan Peele really knows how to put together an incredibly tense sequence. There's at least 2 or 3 where I am just there. I am feeling it. I am in suspense. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen next, and it's so well executed. I love the characters in this film, all of them. I think they're all really interesting. Even some of the smaller characters, I'm like, hi, man, this guy is cool, fun to watch, you know? Mm-hmm. Heck, even the TMZ guy who shows up at the end of the movie, I just think, you know what I mean? Like, every character feels like they have purpose and meaning, and whether that's a comedic value or they're trying to add something to sort of the commentary that I think Peele is putting on display here, they're all great. And again, the movie just looks awesome. Like, it just looks like a top-notch production. Like, again, he knows how to direct. Jordan Peele clearly knows how to direct the hell out of a sequence. I think, so alluding to what Daniel alluded to, being, I felt like this is a case of there was things missing, things either needed to be added or taken away. And what I mean is he throws in a lot of stuff that sort of, you know, when you think about setups and payoffs, he puts probably too much setup for payoffs that don't feel like they justified the setup that they put, right? It feels sort of clunky in that way. Or so he either needed to reduce the amount of time we spent setting these things up, so that way when the payoffs arrived, it felt a little more like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Or he needed to flesh this thing out a little bit. Now, we live in a post-Snyder Cut era, and I absolutely, you know, thank you, Taika Waititi, for basically going the opposite direction for Thor Ragnarok, saying director's cuts are all garbage. I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't think they're all garbage, but I do think that there are times when a little bit of extra would have been appreciated. Now, that said, I think Jordan Peele had a lot of control and influence over the final cut of this film. I don't know if he had the actual final cut right, but what I will say is I kind of wish I had gotten a little more at times. It felt like there were scenes and connective tissue that were missing a little bit. Mm-hmm. It didn't ruin the movie. And I still overall had a great time with it. I really did. That said, I think if I were to compare it to, you know, his previous 2 films, I mean, Get Out is a masterpiece. It literally changed the way I think about a lot of different topics and a lot of, and I genuinely think I'm a better person because I saw that movie, and Laurent, because you and I have talked about that movie. Sure. And I think Us, while not quite as, you know, powerful in a lot of ways as Get Out, I think the movie still has incredibly sharp commentary on the nature of privilege and what it means to be on the receiving end of privilege, and, you know, what is that costing other people that maybe you don't know, right? Mm-hmm. This movie, I feel like, has some ideas that it's playing with. And Laurent, I'm really glad that you liked sort of the ambiguity. Makes me more excited to get to the spoiler section, because you actually genuinely might change my mind on how I feel about this at the end. But there's 2 or 3 core ideas that I see in the movie that I don't really feel like aren't fully realized in a way that I just feel like I'm walking away thinking about the nature of entertainment. Like, that's clearly a thing he's thinking about, but I don't really think it goes all the way. Or at least that was sort of how I felt at the end. All of that said, I think this is one of the best movies I've seen this summer. I hope it makes all the money. I want to see Jordan Peele continue to make movies like he's making. But this one is the first one where the M. Night Shyamalan effect, I am not overly concerned, but I am marginally concerned. And it definitely seems like a case of, if you think about M. Night Shyamalan doing The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs being the weakest, also happens to deal with aliens of some sort. There's some parallels. I don't want to oversell them because I think that, you know, this is all, I don't think there's real parallels there, but I just, you know, my gut is like, okay, I did like Signs, but this is the one where I'm like, okay, the next one's going to be the real, like, okay, is this guy like, is he going to keep going at the same speed and velocity with the same powers he has with his first 2 or 3 films? Or is this next one the one where we go, uh-oh,
yeah,
someone needs to be told no at some point. But overall, that said, Signs is still a great movie. I will go to bat for it any day. And I think Nope is still a great movie. So I'm largely positive on it, just with some reservations, to put a pin in it. Okay, so I mean, we mentioned the performances, Daniel Kaluuya returning and Keke Palmer. What did you guys think about these? I mean, were you pretty satisfied with what they brought to the table? I mean, I know for me, Keke Palmer just fucking hit a home run here. I mean, like every scene, she just gobbled up all the energy, and paired really well with Daniel Kaluuya, actually, who was playing a very reserved character. So they bounced really well off each other. I mean, I don't know, Laurent, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think, she was absolutely a scene stealer. And I think that, these aren't the kind of performances I think that garner like Oscar attention, but they're super engaging in the context of the story that we're telling here. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they added the humor and the pathos for this kind of genre that you wouldn't normally get. So she's the humor, and I'd say he's the pathos because it's a much more quiet, restrained, kind of quietly intense performance from him. But that balance is really nice, and I love the dynamic between the two of them. That the love was felt between the two of them. There was a connection there that was deeply present throughout the film.
Absolutely. Daniel?
Yeah, they absolutely parlayed off of one another exceptionally well. So much so that while I was watching, I was thinking how much I just want to see more films that actually star them. I know Keke Palmer, there isn't that many films that she stars in per se, from what I can recall, or at least that I've seen her in a lead role.
She has a television background. Is that right?
I think so.
She was like one of the television childhood actors, right?
She's one of those people that she's like. I mean, she is a talk show host now.
Yeah,
she's she's been in supporting roles for about. Gosh, I mean, since Akeelah and the Bee, however, that was almost 20 years ago.
Oh man,
yeah, that's like 2006, right?
Yeah. So I mean, so and then she has a music career. Like, so she's a musician too. So she's like one of those.
She's not 30 yet, guys. I looked her up the other day. I was like, holy cow, how is she done? She's so talented. So she's gonna be. I mean, she was fantastic here, but like, she's only gonna keep going up, right? Sure. She's killing it.
And I just hope, because again, she brings such a good energy and just the spirit of ambition. And you're right, absolutely right. I cannot agree more that she does. I will say to some extent, steals the scenes, yes, but I still think the two lead characters, they definitely and I believe it was OJ and Emerald, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they parlay off of one another so well. And I know Kaluuya, it's a lot of acting with his face, which again, Kaluuya just has so much emotion on his face. And I will say, we get quite a bit of that in Get Out. I think another thing that people maybe tend to forget about, maybe I just think people forget about it, but the Black Mirror episode, 15 Million Merits.
Oh yeah,
that he stars in is another excellent and very, very unique science fiction take, but great. And again, another thing, just to speak on Palmer, her physical comedy, how animated she is. They're great. I almost wonder if just primarily focusing on them, and maybe a few other characters, again, would have helped the film a little bit more for me, because I seem to just want for them quite a bit more in this film. But they definitely were there, and I still think they were utilized well.
So here's my thing, and again, I'm positive on the film. I think their performances are so good, they cover up a lot of the weaknesses in the script as I see it.
Yeah.
I don't think the script's bad. I just think there's a lot of pieces missing, but their performances are so strong, they anchor it in a like what they do for this film is they really level it up. As in, I think if you'd had two lesser actors or two actors with less like chemistry and sort of screen presence, I do think the movie would turn out a little differently.
And it's cool to see a duo here too, because you have with Get Out and Us, it's really like one star is really carrying the weight of everything, and Kaluuya and two of them. But it's and in comparing the three of them, I feel like obviously Get Out is the magnum opus for Peele. And for me, what I found interesting is that Us loved it so much at the time, still love it. I think he's 3 for 3 right now for me. But I think that the more I think about Us over the years, the more the story falls apart for me, and connections don't work. And just in the few days since I've seen, and I happened to see it twice actually now before, just in time for this, but the more I think about Nope, the more the things click for me.
That's
whereas
great.
The reverse for Us. So I found that really interesting. I've also absorbed a lot of think pieces. So a lot more things feel like, aha, that makes more sense to me. But definitely, I think the two of them are the strongest element of it. And I think it wouldn't have worked as strongly for sure without two really strong performers. So,
And another thing I'd add too is just, again, I know I talked about how well, Peele understands how to do an action sequence. And I know one of his goals with this movie was to make a movie on a bigger scope than his previous two films. And I think he successfully does. I think those elements he does really well. The final act of this movie is freaking awesome. It's so great. I had so much fun, edge of my seat. And just, again, great storytelling, great filmmaking overall. And you get to see it on the big screen. Because I saw this in the Dolby, the AMC Dolby, and I can't imagine having seen it on a smaller screen because it just really, I was fully immersed. I was there. And, I think this deserves that premium experience just as much as any Avengers movie. Or Star Wars movie for that matter. Even if it's not like a big spectacle, there is a lot of that in the movie. So with all that said, again, I want to spend most of our time in spoilers here, but quickly, I want to get the letter grades in the movie. So what letter grade would you give Nope? Daniel, I'll start with you.
LaRon has convinced me to amend my grade a little bit, that I might be being a little bit too harsh on it. I originally wanted to give it a C+, but I think I'm feeling more of a B-. I actually think it's better. And you actually bringing up Signs, I like Signs too. I think this is quite a bit better than Signs. I don't see as much of a concern. I think M. Night Shyamalan owns his own whatever you wanted to describe it as. But I don't see Peele doing that. I will say Peele in interviews certainly comes across as significantly more humble than M. Night Shyamalan ever did, I will say. So that's one bonus for him. And I hope he continues to push those technical boundaries. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but like you mentioning the night sequences, that's actually one thing on a technical level. I think it exceeds even something like Get Out, because Get Out, there's to some extent, I heard in part of this, I heard an interview with him recently that he mentioned like he really wishes he had the technique that he approached Nope with when he approached Get Out, just to make some of those sequences like Walter running directly at the camera and Get Out, making those pop a little bit more and creating something a little bit better. But whereas, to Lauren's point, you are actively searching around. The nighttime doesn't feel like a compromise. It feels like a critical part of the film. But yeah, I'll say a B-. Generally positive, a few reservations with the narrative. But maybe that'll appreciate over time. Absolutely. All right, Daniel Bokemper, thanks so much for that rating. LaRon Chapman, how about you?
On my first viewing, there was a lot of noise in my head, and I needed to sit with it for a minute to really mull it over. But I felt pretty favorable, and I thought I was sitting there in the B+, A- range. But on the second viewing, and after, again, absorbing a lot of content about the meaning and symbolism behind the whole film, I'm sitting squarely at a strong A.
All right, strong A. Man, I'm going to bring us home right in the middle because I'm going to give it a B. I really like this movie. I do. I have some reservations, but LaRon, to your point, maybe if I see it again and I let it sit, it'll become a little more clear, because I generally like movies that make me work a little more to try to figure out what's going on. And I do think this movie has a lot of things on its mind that are potentially pretty powerful. And again, just so much about the movie works. And I think removing the story elements to it, I think this is just a spectacle that succeeds, and it has a lot of original ideas. Whether or not you think that works on it thematically is beside the point, because I think the actual execution of those sequences and the spectacle is so good. It's definitely quality blockbuster material. Before we head into spoilers, what alternate movie, television, novel, movie, video game, or other media recommendation would you give to listeners who enjoy Nope? LaRon, I'm going to pass it back to you.
There have been so many comparisons to Jaws, and now that I've revisited, I can see so many more. So I think that's definitely one that if you watched it before or after, either way, I think it'll help you appreciate certain homages that are definitely present in the film. So I would say Jaws is something they need to watch as an alternative film.
Classic for the young kids who haven't seen Jaws. Go watch it. It's incredible.
Or watch it again for those many people who already have seen it.
For the 15th time. Actually, 15th is probably a conservative estimate. 25th time. Daniel Bokemper, what would you recommend to listeners?
I've got 3 films for different reasons. My first is going to be Ron Underwood's Tremors. Of course, starring Kevin Bacon.
It's a great movie.
Reba McEntire. Yeah, if you want strange things. In a desert, it's basically the floor is lava, but actually the floor is carnivorous sandworms. So that's pretty cool. I not to be too much of a downer, but one film I revisited literally today was Blackfish, the documentary from 2013.
That is a downer.
It is a very don't keep killer whales in captivity and force them to perform. They will eat you eventually. Other than that, it's just inhumane and cruel. But a film that I think thematically speaks or lends itself to some of the things we see in Nope. And then finally, because Keith David is in this film at the very start, and he does die both I don't want to put any spoilers on there. Sorry.
Well, you already spoiled it. You said he dies, so thanks, Daniel.
First 5 minutes, come on. But first 10 minutes, I should say. But
yeah, sure.
What Keith David is in it.
It's baked into the premise.
Yes. Keith David is a very important part, but it is largely, I guess, one step above a cameo, maybe, but still a relatively small part. But another UFO and alien film, The Thing, of course, John Carpenter's Thing, this specifically, and Keith David plays a significantly larger part in that film. So check it out. Those would be my 3.
Awesome. And I'm just going to add this one on the fly because I love Keith David and I love aliens. Just play Halo 2. Go back to the classic. He voiced the Arbiter, baby. You want to talk about aliens and you want Keith David, and you get at least a dozen hours of bonding time with him. And actually, if you play Halo 3, you can continue the journey further on from there.
Yes.
So who doesn't want Keith David voicing, an iconic alien? I do feel like he is so closely intertwined with the role. That one was added as a bonus. My recommendation is actually going to be thematically in line with sort of the film's critique of entertainment and the cost and toll it takes on those who provide it and watch it. Tropic Thunder, one of my favorite comedies that
could never be made today.
And it can, I'm just going to point out, it can never be made today. I'm not sure if it's okay to say I like it, but I'm going to say I love it because it's so
great.
funny. And the way it explores sort of like the links that people will go to remain relevant and to remain, suitable for an audience is absurd. The things people do in the entertainment industry to sort of to be in that place is freaking crazy. And we'll talk about it more in spoilers, but I think this movie, Nope, has a lot to say about that. So if you want another movie that's very funny, Tropic Thunder, if you haven't seen it, it's Ben Stiller. It's Robert Downey Jr. playing a role he definitely couldn't play today. And there's a lot of fun cameos in there. Everyone from Bill Hader to Tom Cruise. It is just loaded and packed to the brim with so much riffing on the Hollywood system. Circa 2008, but I still think a lot of the principles still very much apply today. So great time. I highly recommend.
Top 5 Tom Cruise performances.
Absolutely. Easily. Hands down.
Just because, man. Wow.
Uncredited too, right?
Yeah.
They kept that secret. They kept that under wraps. Like, I think it was supposed to be a surprise that he was in the movie. Yeah. And it was something else.
It was.
It was something else. Scorched earth, motherfucker. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not want to be spoiled on Nope, you want to make sure to tune out now. And again, we're going to be speaking at length about some stuff. So seriously, if you haven't watched the movie, stop what you're doing. We all gave it a good review. Go to the theater. Right now, I don't care if you're at work, you're sick, you're going to the theater. You're on your bicycle, ride it to the theater. You're on the treadmill, well, there's a theater, I'm sure, within running distance of you. Your wife's going into labor, well, you probably should have your baby first, but then you go to the theater, okay? And you watch Nope, and then you come back and you listen to the next section. So if you don't want to be spoiled, go ahead and tune out now.
There's no way that he can win.
No.
No. So anyway, what'd you think of the season finale of Game of Thrones?
Right?
Oh, no. I'm reading the books.
Sorry.
In the middle of the first book.
And he reads slow.
Hey.
We can never talk about
You're in
it.
trouble.
We're never going to talk about it.
Okay.
No, you're right. Hey, has anybody seen that new Russell Crowe thriller? Because let me tell you,
Sorry, it's just, we're going tomorrow, and I don't want to know a thing about it.
She doesn't want to know a thing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So good, though.
Who won the game?
I think that it was...
That, I'm going to watch it later.
Oh, you're...
Oh, you have the DVR.
I got it.
Start. Okay.
Got
That was a word.
Yeah.
So.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
what's the weather going to be like this...
Sorry, it's we're having a barbecue this weekend, and I don't want to stress about the weather. And
No, of course you don't.
We just, yeah.
Yeah,
whatever
you
we're
know,
talking
over
about.
here.
All right, so there's a lot of things to unpack here, but first and foremost, let's just start with what I would consider maybe more one of the more surface level things we could dig into, which is the way the movie tackles UFOs. Now, originally, I didn't even want to mention that was a part of the premise of the movie, but it was largely featured in the recent trailers that it was a UFO of some kind. So again, in the spoiler-free section, we still talked about that quite a bit. But here's what we didn't talk about. Is that the movie turns out to be about UFOs or aliens where the UFO is the creature consuming all of the things that look at it, apparently. So I have to ask, what did you think about Peele's take on this classic UFO trope? LaRon Chapman, I'm starting with you.
All right. So I actually think it's brilliant after thinking about it more, but I think that there's several different lenses through which you can kind of watch the film thematically, but it also does work as just a straightforward UFO, sci-fi epic. And I think that for me, this is the first time that the presence of an alien life form was genuinely eerie and creepy again, for me. A lot of people referenced again that there's a lot of homages to Jaws. I remember the first time we see it, when OJ looks up at the sky and you see it kind of, move past the cloud. I remember seeing the waves or the ripple effect of the clouds as it's moving by, kind of paying homage to the ocean, the waves, whatever, if we're thinking of Jaws. And then just its movements in general, just not like we see with you. Normally it's this industrial thing, but it kind of just glides in the sky, kind of like a stingray. That's kind of what I was thinking of. So again, just thinking that all feels so intentional to me. An intentional way to kind of harken back to that film without it actually being about that, but just kind of cool little touches like that. But yeah, I thought it has this kind of sea-like, ocean-like creature vibe to it, because there's clearly the inspirations to it, the way it's lurking behind things, the music, that the score is really haunting whenever it's around, and it's always preying on us, and it's always right there, in the abyss of the darkness. So I thought those little touches were really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the way it's very floaty. And I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole of UFOs and are they real and whatnot. But what I will say is one thing that I feel like I've seen a lot of, there's no way to talk about this and not sound like a lunatic. Okay. And all of the UFO related content that's considered technically non-fictional that I've seen on the History Channel, there's a lot of times where they show you stuff where you're it looks like the aliens or the UFO is more floaty, but LaRon, to your point, in a lot of, especially movies, it's when it shows up, it's a big thing. It makes tons of noise, and it's again that majesty where we talked about earlier with some other films. This film does not take that approach at all. It's like you said, it's just stalking people, waiting for its moment, to come up from behind the clouds and zoom in very fast, in a very floaty manner. Not doesn't feel like an engine is
almost
feeling
weightless.
Yes,
it's
yes.
just
Absolutely. It feels good. Daniel, what did you think about the UFO?
Yeah, I love the design. To be honest, I think that's might have been the most appealing thing about this film to me. And I think just how it's built, you both have spoken to this a little bit, but the very elusive nature of UFOs of themselves. Wouldn't it be fascinating if the reason they're so elusive is because you die if you look at them or if you try to capture them on film? And I think playing on that and again, just how it manipulates electronics, keeps itself from being recorded, even if you just so much as look at it. I think that's really fascinating. And again, mentioning, ocean creatures, yes, being more of a predatory animal like a shark is close too. But as we'll speak to, as it begins to unfold itself, I almost think that it's less extraterrestrial and actually still in some ways very terrestrial, not literally on land, but that it's derived from things that are of Earth, that we see, that we're familiar with, even though we don't fully understand them. Deep sea jellyfish is what comes to my mind, or something like the vampire squid is what I was thinking of. Again, very, very, very elusive, almost never captured on film. But when it is, it's just crazy. It's awe-inspiring. But again, I do love this take especially, and I love just some of the glimpses. And I think what was paced really well about this film is just how we gradually learn more about Jean Jacket, its name,
Right.
And which I love as a name for a UFO. But yeah, I don't know. I do really think it's very imaginative, and it's an interesting spin. And I can't think of another film where like the ship itself is the thing, the creature, even though it's not technically a ship, I guess, by that logic. But yeah, I think it was very powerful, very, very, very original too.
Another thing is it is still scary. He finds a way to make it really terrifying. Again, we mentioned the night sequences in the spoiler-free section. Not only is the night sequence just well executed in terms of suspense, but you hear the thing digesting other people, and you hear but it's not like a normal scream. It's like the echoes of a bunch of screams, but like in the noise, you hear them in the digestive tracts together in this awful, eerie, just
which reminded
terrifying
me
way.
of Annihilation, like the bear.
Yes.
Like the voice out.
Oh,
it mimics
yeah.
the people that it's consuming. It has that same kind of visceral feeling. Yeah.
And you just gave me goosebumps right there by mentioning the Annihilation there.
Sequence is terrifying.
Yeah, I love that about it, and just again the idea that what motivates it is not being seen. If you look at it, it's coming for you. That's the whole point, and it also sort of ties into the quote that was at the front of the movie. I believe it was some sort of biblical scripture talking about the dangers of spectacle. Overall, I think it's pretty great design. What did you guys think about sort of the final form and how they took it out in the final confrontation? Were you pretty satisfied, Daniel?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, it's like one part deep sea jellyfish, and then it's one part wet plate camera, and you kind of see that played out, and you see it, and it again harkens back to the very first film that was captured. The black jockey on a horse that again serves as a bit of a premise and gives us some of the backstory into the family at the center of the film. But yeah, it just the journey that we take to get to that reveal, and then I think it just makes logical sense that the UFO, which I started to think it appeared like a giant eye. And again, I compare it somewhat to the design we have for the sandworms in Dune. But now it unfolds into actually what appears to be like its own like capturing device. And again, those rectangular, just those individual frames that keep popping out. And I just love that design, and I love that transformation. And it also felt earned. And again, this sequence of like, oh, we've captured, it's just so how much we learn a little bit more about it. Not too much to like defeat any sense of mystery or wonder. The curiosity of how this thing works always there, but the fact that it continues to move into these things that are, somewhat familiar, without ever actually losing what it is or just seeming superficial. It just seems all very, very, very deliberate. So yeah, I do really love the final form, and it's cool. You play a video game and you defeat a boss, and then it's like, oh, I'm not quite dead yet. And it's just one of those moments, and it did feel very rewarding in that way.
Awesome. No, that whole last sequence, again, as I noted earlier, is probably my favorite part of the movie. It's an incredible just sequence in terms of the way they plot it. They realize the weakness, they plot it out, they come up with this perfect plan, and just, as all perfect plans in movies, it goes wrong, and they figure out how to fight it anyway. It's just, man, it's great filmmaking. LaRon, what did you think about the final form and sort of that final confrontation?
It's cool. I felt like the opening sequence, like the opening credits, like when we're in the mouth or the eye, whatever, of this being, and it does feel like you're in a camera lens, and it ends. And as soon as that sequence ends and the movie starts, it starts playing the jockey sequence, which I thought was cool. So it's clearly like hearkening the idea of this idea. It's viewing us. It's surveilling us, in some type of way. And again, I think that. As I said, you can watch this film through many different lenses. And like I said, it can be enjoyed as just a straightforward alien movie. But I feel like if you view it as just a straightforward alien movie, then there's going to be something that leaves you wanting at the end. Because what I'm learning more and more after, thinking and pondering it is that the aliens in this film, I mean, this has a film that features aliens, but it is not about aliens.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the aliens is a vehicle to sort of tackle some other larger ideas.
Exactly. And the aliens themselves, are obviously a stand-in, a symbol for a much larger, deeper conversation. And I think that's where Peele also kind of subverts our expectations here for the big reveal, because normally we're used to seeing we're going to get the aliens' motives. We're going to get it's going to be in this tangible, slimy, tentacle, saucer-eyed form. Instead, as we saw, it's this billowing, balloon-like, kind of, shapeless, formless figure, So I found that obviously another, interesting, subversion of what we're expecting from an alien feature film. But yeah, and I'm glad he resisted that reveal too, of showing it in its like a traditional form, because that would have been very underwhelming, because we have seen that so many times. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And I just want to drill in a little further to the sequence here. I mean, I think it's going to sort of take us into sort of the next topic, which I think is going to get to that commentary that you're hinting at, LeRon, there. But just I love how they were able to recruit the filmmaker to join them, only specifically a cinematographer, a director of photography, using an IMAX camera. I mean, this movie is clearly sort of critiquing whether it's the opening credits that you note there, but even the fact that it's their obsession is with filming this thing. They have to figure out how to capture it so they can make lots of money. And who do they go to capture it? Well, they go to a director of photography, and he's got a hand-cranked IMAX camera, which is just amazing. By the way, the fact that this guy shows up with an IMAX camera that he hand cranks. And then on top of that, I love how he gets eaten because he's a DP, and he's like, we don't deserve, we don't deserve the impossible. So in a true director of photography, he's like, I got to do what I got to do to get the shot. And of course it ends up to him getting eaten. Did he get the shot? I'm not sure. We may never know. But I kind of love this idea that the movie is really, even in those final moments, talking about, you think you want this thing. Do you really want this thing, or does this thing want you? Which way is it? At the end of the day, who's controlling who here? Are you really in control by thinking you can capitalize on this sort of transdimensional being that you don't understand, or is it using your weakness and obsession to capture it as bait to draw you in and suck it up to the machine? And I just think that the way they execute it in grand blockbuster fashion is tons of fun. But the freaking TMZ guy shows up, which is hilarious. But of course, even up to his death is like, where's my camera? I gotta get a photo, man. Everyone here is just obsessed with getting a piece of this thing. And that is ultimately, everyone who dies in this film dies because they're trying to get a photo.
I love just how confident that was a character that was introduced momentarily that I just loved, just because it was like, he's so confident, but 8 things that you immediately notice about him: the electrical motorcycle, the all reflective nature of his helmet, the camera itself. They're all bad ideas for approaching this thing.
Absolutely. He's like the worst thing that could happen.
Right.
You are lunch.
And Kiki Palmer's just like, man, you seriously, please do not want any part of this. And he's filming her saying that so he can blackmail her later. Just like, wow, this guy has got it in.
OJ's trying to save him, but he's just like, the content. Did I capture the content? And then he's just like, fuck, I can't.
Yeah, LeRon, what were we going to say?
Well, I was going to say, in the ending of this film, obviously it's not really about the reveal of the alien itself. It's really revealing to us, ourselves as the spectators, consumed by the spectacle of the thing. So I thought that was really an interesting way of, making this overarching idea about spectacle, our obsession with spectacle, how we become consumed by it. How, a lot of what happens in the final sequence, and we'll talk about it later, is alluded to in that horrific sequence that we haven't spoken about yet, involving the chimp. Because a lot of what's happening is paralleling in this moment. In the idea, obviously, the balloons and these different things being this invitation of spectacle. You go to you see a birthday party, there's a balloon on the outside. You're getting ready to see something spectacular. And so it being enticed by these things, and also it being the thing that kind of sets the creature off, off its mark, so because it itself, like us and like all of the characters, the TMZ character, the filmmaker, All of them fall victim to this. They're consumed by the idea of viewing this thing, no matter how culpable we all become, by amplifying it. So I thought that was a really interesting take on it. But
yeah, absolutely. And again, we haven't talked about Jupe, right? This is the character played by Stephen Yeun, who, by the way, this is one of those moments where I wanted more, actually, because I found this character really fascinating. And just about the moment I felt like I was clicking with him, he died. And really spectacular sequence, I might add. Just the way he goes out was incredible. And I love that they sort of used him as a vehicle to show this is a guy, as a kid, was traumatized by this chimp killing all of his cast members on a sitcom that he starred on. But that sort of like gave him the confidence, like he is obsessed with that. That moment defines his entire life. He is obsessed with sort of recapturing the greatness that he had. Everything about his life is entertainment. He moves to a fake town. He builds his own ranch. He then, instead of when he knows that this thing is sucking things up, instead of trying to like warn people, he's like, how can I have looked evil in the eye before. I think I know how to handle it. And that's ultimately his downfall, right?
Yeah, this false confidence, because out of all the people that and he didn't quite kill all of them. There is somebody who lived, I guess. But to that character who she has no speaking roles, but it was his former Jupe's former co-star.
Did she survive?
She's in that's the woman with the
yeah. But she survived the first time.
That's what I mean. No, I was saying she is destined. Destined to be
phase 2. They're both out.
Yeah. We didn't get you the first time.
But in many ways, it's because he didn't learn the lesson. He that traumatic event. Instead of using it for good, he used it for he kind of profited off of it.
Well, not absolutely. The thing is, and I should have caught on to it sooner. It's very clear after the fact where he misstepped. But even at the beginning of the movie, he has that private room, and he's like, I normally charge for this.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh yeah, I had this couple staying here for $10,000 one night. Like his whole thing was, and when he thought about it, it's like clearly a traumatized thing, but he's always on the upbeat, trying to figure out how do I get the most out of this opportunity.
How do I milk it for something? And again, that being consumed by this idea of spectacle, like we got, profiting off it. His own trauma is being used in a way that's not, you know what I mean? Like,
it reminds me of like Grizzly Man, because it's like this idea that because what I took from that is that he has the confidence that he can survive these dangerous things that are supposedly uncontrollable, because at the end of the day, Gordy still fist bumped him. He was still cool with him moments before.
Also, screw this movie. It made me really sad that about Gordy just often. I mean, you knew it was coming. You knew it was inevitable, but it was still just such a sad moment.
No, it was. It genuinely was. And but that's the thing. I think Grizzly Man is a sad film because this guy does think he's in with the grizzly bears, and I'm going to spend as much time as catching footage that no one else could ever capture, get this close to them, only to ultimately die and succumb to them. And that's kind of sad. But that again, he very much is a tragic character, but also just a very pompous and arrogant one. And so there is a bit of Schadenfreude to be like, oh yeah, you really don't know what the hell you're trying to control. But at the end of the day, it's also like, how could you not see this happening? Why do you take your experience you had with a chimp and apply it to this? And it's because we don't think through that logically. Once we have confidence to do something or to try something, and we're committed to it, we're going to do it.
And he didn't treat the alien life form with the same kind of humanity that that wasn't extended to the chimp.
Exactly.
Which was the lesson he was supposed to learn from that moment, was that what happened to this creature, what happened to this animal, was because it was exploited. It was because it was being used as, as a show pony of sorts, Even after this brutal massacre, here he is, he's like, okay, well now I'm doing the same thing to this alien life form, like making this grander stage, doing exactly what even was happening to him as a token Asian character, as playing this all-American, sheriff archetype,
Right.
Kid sheriff.
He's being used, as a token on it, as kind of the butt of a joke, as is the monkey, And I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves in that sequence in particular. Like, I think about how like he's there as the butt of a joke, the monkey's there as a butt of a joke, and then as they kind of open up that big box and the monkeys release and the balloons start making it go out off the rails, and you start seeing it going all erratic. In the end, that final moment where he's laying eyes, they have a moment together where they do recreate the fist bump thing. that kind of becomes this iconic thing. But in that moment, I think the reason the monkey didn't kill him because he saw himself in that kid, as we're both in this
token character.
We're both tokens. We're both being exploited here.
Yeah.
And it was that brief moment of humanity, and then it gets murdered. So he learned nothing from that moment, and I think that's what it is. Is while I do feel bad for his character, all these years later, he's literally profiting and exploiting these negative things and with no regard whatsoever for the subject that's being exploited, at the expense of profit, at the expense of ego, at the expense of spectacle, at the expense of all these things. So, and I think that whole sequence in and of itself, while it feels divorced from the A storyline, I feel like is connected more thematically and symbolically.
Yeah. It is. And that's where I think some people, maybe their reservations about this film might respond negatively. Is like with Us, the things you see very early on, they are directly like narratively connected, and they pay off, I think, in a more direct way. When you see them, there's nothing implied. There's no it's not so much a like thematic tether. It's like directly tethered to the plot. Not to say this isn't, but I think I wonder if that's where some people think where the like disconnect is from those flashbacks and that Gordy.
And I feel like it's more like it's kind of, you can look at it as a self-contained short film that kind of like introduces the theme to the movie, if you will.
Oh, it sets the tone. I think it's an incredible way to open the movie because you're just like, oh boy, buckle up because this is the kind of stuff we're about to see, right?
Very, very.
And
dark.
I do love how they bring it back up halfway through the movie in that extended flashback. It is clearly thematically tied. My biggest problem was I just really wanted to see more. Like I found the Jupe character very fascinating. And I don't know. Obviously, he's not the star. He's a supporting character. It's the B subplot that's there to sort of support the underlying themes of the movie. I just wish there was a little more because he just seems so happy-go-lucky, but yet he is simultaneously traumatized when you see those moments where he stops and thinks about it. And even when he's about to walk up on the stage that day, he seems very nervous. So it's like, I just wish I could get a couple more scenes with him. I think that would help me personally. I don't think it ruins the movie by any means. If anything, it's like one of those like...
His death is very abrupt. That is for sure.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I guess, and then it's like his intended purpose in the plot was this moment.
Right.
Was to learn that, here it is like... Years later, we're recycling the same process, and in the end, he meets the demise that every other consumer out there trying to profit or make a spectacle of this thing, meets their demise. And
ironically, none of the characters learn that lesson either, because they literally all are like, "All right, how can we get a video of this thing?" It's that's sort of the interesting thing, though, right? Yeah. Like they sort of see it. But even they can't totally look away from the rich possibilities that lie ahead if they can capture it on IMAX.
And I think the distinction, though, I think the reason why OJ, love his name, and Emerald, evade this is because, like OJ in particular, he showed that he extended that compassion, extended that, that sensitivity, like to the animal, like his own horses that were being exploited for this. For the same purposes. And when he realizes that what if this is what we're doing, but maybe what we're doing is causing this, if we, respect these kinds of boundaries, then maybe, in that sense. And also because while they are at first, of course, they're getting the Oprah shot, they're trying to profit off of this thing, but they've already been, had an injustice done to them. They've already had their legacy kind of ripped from them, which is kind of introducing at the very beginning of the movie right away, like, hey, we got no credit for this. There's no, mention of this person who really kind of started everything. And it's like becomes an opportunity. So their need to capture this is more out of survival, is more out of a need to, sustain
they need money.
Sustain themselves because something was already taken from them, And so in a way, I feel like, I won't say like it is the same thing, but it kind of like their intentions are less about greed and more about and more out of need, So I kind of saw that as like the reason they have the saving grace in this moment for capturing it, because their intentions are better than the people around them.
Yeah, I mean, that part is absolutely accurate. So before we transition to sort of the last major topic I wanted to dig into, Laurent, that you hinted at here about just sort of black entertainers in Hollywood history, I want to just posit this. What if, just stay with me, what if the UFO is the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yes.
You think I'm joking? I've thought about this probably because this came out the same weekend that Comic-Con happened and there was tons of Marvel news, and I was like, God, Marvel movies forever. But it's the idea of this giant spectacular thing. If you look at it too closely for too long, it sucks you up into it, right? And I'm thinking about probably it's going to sound terrible. A lot of filmmakers who are like, I just need the money. I got to get a job. Or the audiences who are just constantly consumed by wanting more of this thing, right? And you see sort of even the filmmakers on the side who are obsessed with sort of like getting a slice of it to elevate the career. You see casual people. You see the jupes on the side who are trying to make the DCEU, you know, to make their own profit off of it in their own way. You know what I mean? Like it's this big, uncontrollable thing that is just consuming a piece of spectacle, for that matter, that is just constantly consuming everything that looks at it for, you know, purposes that we don't quite understand. I don't know.
I dig it.
I'm throwing that out there. It could be you could replace the MC with anything. That just happens to be the most dominant thing that is consuming Disney and the consolidation of Hollywood / mostly the MCU is consolidating Hollywood as we know it. So, you know, just a thing I was on my mind. Yeah, that's a stretch maybe.
Oh, not too much of one though.
Nothing would surprise me in Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jordan Peele was actively thinking about that.
No, I don't.
But I know that, like, I know that he was thinking about, though, he said in interviews that when he was writing the script, he had on the mind the state of Hollywood and kind of like the state of blockbuster cinema, and he knew he wanted to make a spectacle. I don't think maybe he wasn't thinking of the MCU specifically, but I'm sure he's thinking about, wow, there are these superhero movies that just seem to be all we're making right now. And,
Well, and that's what I love is he made a spectacle.
was unique.
About spectacles.
Yes.
So it's like, it's weird. It's like, it is a spectacle in its own right, but it's also critiquing spectacles at large. It gets us in the movie theater for the same reasons we go to a Marvel movie or to turn our brain, not necessarily Marvel movies, but blockbusters that are, you know, we turn our brains off, and here this is a thinking man's, you know, blockbuster. Absolutely. And I love that aspect of it because what that's such an abstraction to me, to like the idea of like, I'm gonna make a movie about an idea, and it's also, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's very very
again, it goes back to what makes him such a compelling storyteller right now is he feels like he's doing the Twilight Zone, you know, but on a big budget in a lot of ways. He's just taking ideas and figuring out, okay, what does this look like in a story in ways that are fresh and unique and compelling. So that's a huge testament that he's able to do that without using, you know, superheroes with capes or dinosaurs or, you know, any of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Will we get a Jordan Peele superhero film?
Don't ask that question.
They're gonna ask him. They're gonna ask him.
Oh,
Please don't.
No. You know they've already asked him. He's probably said,
I hope it was a resounding nope.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this is sort of a side tangent, but you know, at one point he was going to produce the Akira movie, and I actually was
I mean,
watching.
that would have been cool. That's not a superhero film, though.
No, it's not. It's not. But I will say it was really great in the interview because he kind of explained why he decided not to pursue that. He was like, well, it's one of my favorite movies. It's like, it influenced me so profoundly. But then I realized it's a perfect movie. What am I going to do to make it better? And you know, there's so many stories not being told. Why would I just want to recreate something that's already being told? Even, you know, through my own lens, what am I going to add to it to make it better? Anyway, I just think it's the way he thinks about how he chooses his projects, is just a testament to his character, frankly.
I did cheer for the brief Akira illusion we did get when Emerald does the motorcycle slide on the, very, very,
I love Jordan Peele.
Nose, but yeah.
In terms of filmmakers, I would love to have a beer with. Jordan Peele has got to be top 3.
He's just got some things going on up here, and he does it. So it seems so effortless, like when he's speaking, and it's like you just came up with Get Out. That just came out of your head. Like, don't get me wrong, we've all I've experienced it. I didn't think of anything. I would even conceptualize an idea like that. You know, like, I mean, a horror movie reimagined as this, you know, as like what it's like to be Black in America, and actually, it's still scary. It's like so. It's like that's something I wish I'd come up with. Like, so if I was in a multiverse, I would go back, steal that idea, and claim it as my own.
Well, and he just seems so personable too. He makes it seem so effortless, but also just like very approachable and conversational. Like, yeah, I had this cool idea. Like, what if you do this? What do you think? And it's like, I'm not on your level, bro. But you know, like he's doing some incredible stuff. So let's sort of transition to, I think, the last major topic I want to make sure we hit on here, because it has been alluded to in the trailers. Lauren's already talked about it, but the way they opened the trailer even with, hey, did you know the man riding the horse in the very first motion picture was a black man on a horse? And what if we told the story of his great grandkids? Oh, there's another great, probably. Which again, I thought that line was great.
So great.
And also just
It's so great.
It's so great.
Yes.
And also Keke Palmer, I know it's in the trailer, but damn, what a way to introduce the character. She just like nails it, instantly. So the movie features the descendants of that previously unnamed black man. So I just wanted to get, your take here. Lauren, starting with you.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about this inclusion? Did you think this was sort of like a fun sort of like scene setting detail? Or do you think the movie is really digging into, hey, like, African Americans, black filmmakers have been a part of it the whole time. They just haven't gotten their credit.
Yeah, I feel like it's really intentional. It kind of confronts this idea of erasure of, accomplishments of black figures throughout history in general, not claiming ownership of things that we influenced or inspired in some capacity. And that's why I think the urgency of them capturing this thing is so much more, impactful for the two of them than it would be anybody else. And also, I think it also, like, them capturing it also for me, and I might just be reading it from my own experience as a black man, but like this idea of like, we have to get it on film or they won't believe it happened.
Yeah.
Now that could be obviously taken back into police brutality, things we've seen here with the Black Lives Matter movements, all these things. Like, with if it's not on film, it didn't happen, it's my word against yours, and you're going to go with this person every single time. And even if it's captured on film, you're going to scrutinize it and find some way for how, what happened before this or what happened after this. So I saw that also at least subtly being referenced here, and how important it was that they captured this, not just for their own survival, sustainability on their property, but also, making, a more, overarching idea about what that's like, for us, as in general, and having to constantly, and the danger of capturing it too. Like what it's going to do, what kind of attention that's going to bring to us because we did that, how are they going to silence us for it and what have you. So I saw that, all of that kind of being referenced there with this whole pie chase pursuit against this, shapeless alien life form. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's, I think Peele said, I think it was on the press tour for us, when asked if he would ever make a filmmaker starring, white people. And he's like, no, because I'm not interested in those stories. Those stories have already been overexposed.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great that he's able to bring that piece of cinematic history to the forefront here. And Laurent, I hadn't even considered like the implications of like, if you're a person of color filming this, are people going to doubt you? I mean, because you're sure enough, if you came out with those claims that they're going to think anyone's crazy, but they're extra going to think that if you're a person of color, that you were just probably some sort of drug addict of some kind. You know what I mean? You'll find a way to just be more dismissive of it. But even then, what are the risks? I think that's a great way to pose it. Is there something to that? Even if they get what they need, are they actually going to succeed in the fame and fortune that they're seeking?
Well, yeah, and even like relatively early in the film, they capture the anomaly on film. They at least capture that still cloud, but it's like, this isn't enough. No one is going to believe us. No one is going to, like, even with this evidence, people still aren't going to believe us. We still have to get more.
What did he say? It's good, but it's not Oprah.
Right.
we gotta try harder. This
That's
is not
pretty fucking crazy.
It's pretty crazy. It's not moving. It's not moving. But that's not
clouds
enough.
don't sit there.
Right.
But yeah, no, and that's it. And yeah, I think it is like the objectification is still definitely there, because even before that idea is introduced that they are related to technically the first film star, they were never credited. And then even when he revealed like his name, Otis Jr., it's OJ, and like that one of the actors on that commercial, she just like, oh yeah, it's like very palpable. Yeah, she's like, oh.
And at first I thought that was just like a throwaway black joke, but then I'm thinking about how sensationalized that murder trial was for OJ. So it's also like getting back to the idea of spectacle, because that was a nationwide spectacle, and it had brought up a whole lot of conversations about race, the criminal justice system, celebrity, because he was a celebrity. So is he an exception to the rule? All these different things. And so his name, also, it just kind of seemed also very intentional, not just for that funny moment.
Yeah, exactly.
But to talk about, again, thematically what's going on here with the idea of sensationalizing horrific things, and how again, us as spectators, you know, as we tuned in, I wasn't of age, but my parents did, were tuning in and just amplifying it. And we were the people, like, you know, charging him with or without it, you know, at the time, the public opinion, kind of asserting ourselves into it. And so, like, there's a level of violence there too, you know, in a way, you know, whether we're, again, like, just culpable for viewing it over and over again and bringing attention to something like that. But I thought that was an interesting little nod, you know, just with his name, you know.
Yeah.
Little touches. He's pretty clever guy, you know.
Yeah.
Also, God bless Keith David. I mean, I was so sad to see him go in the opening.
I wanted
movie.
more scenes with him.
I know.
He had even that
He had
1.5
He had
scenes.
1.5. Yeah, he gets a very brief flashback at the end of the movie. But
It is kind of interesting that he dies by a literal flying saucer, but then he dies by another literal flying saucer, in that the nickel that goes in his eye that kills him. I thought that was a nice touch, but
also eerie, the imagery of him hunched over, like you hear something happen and you're not sure what, and you see him on the horse and then you see him slouch over, God, brutal death. Again, way to set the mood.
Yeah, because he dies by a token of sorts, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and then in the end, they save everything using the tokens to capture the thing. It's just little nods, like little things like that I just thought were really cleverly placed. But
yeah. Well, and I guess the last thing I would say that I found interesting, and I don't know what to make of it quite yet, but I do think there's somewhat of a connection there about what he's saying about, you know, the Asian American experience. Lauren, you were talking about sort of the tokenism earlier. You know, is it that character specifically, or is he trying to get at something larger about how maybe the differences and how minorities have approached sort of like the Hollywood's, you know, studio system? I don't know. I'm not qualified to talk about that, frankly, but I just found it kind of interesting, sort of showcasing how, you know, this is how, you know, historically influential Black creators have been treated, and this is how they approach sort of challenges that are an existential threat. And here's how, you know, other groups of people do the same thing.
Well, even like Khalil's character, I thought it was interesting, like, as we first introduced to the two siblings, like how he's constantly she's very comfortable with herself and the way she projects herself and everything. And he's constantly like taming her down, you know, like, hey, when we go in here, none of that sideshow shit, you know, like, we're going to, like, I need you to, this is a business deal, you know what I mean? Like, don't, and she's like, no, this is my side gig. The other stuff I'm doing, you know, like, so I thought that was interesting. Like, you know, like even his policing of her while we're around other people so that we can assimilate into this larger, you know, whatever, you know, so just a lot of that was interesting, you know, and then obviously he starts realizing that she's more of an asset to him. And she's like, maybe you're holding us back, you know, by trying to appeal to them when we have our own voice, we have our own thing. And I thought I just thought having them in this just adds a whole nother flavor to the genre. I love the swag between, I love their commentary. I love their interactions with each other. I didn't expect to hear the N-word 5 times in the movie, you know, just like in a sci-fi movie, like things like that, just things you just don't see in it that I thought were really cool.
Yeah, and her character is just so interesting too. Again, just her having to observe her dad, Keith David's character, and then OJ, sort of just recreating this system that has never really quite done anything for them. It's just been maintaining the same. They're only there because they train the horses, and we want horses in our films. We want live horses, even though we'll very quickly replace Lucky with a CGI horse if we have the opportunity. But for her having to see the one horse that they got for her, which I can't recall if it was Ghost, one of the other horses, or not. I can't recall, but like she had to watch as, you know, her dad and OJ broke the horse instead of her, and just not her even being a part of this family business. Like they think she's like so different and she's so removed, or it could be she's a woman that she's not capable of doing these things that we.
But she winds up being the one that captures Jean Jacket,
exactly,
you know, which is great. Which is with the name of the horse that she didn't get to before. The kid named it, you know, for this, and so it's like finally she gets her moment there at the end, and it happens to be not a horse, but you know, something pretty significant to tame.
Right. Killing the creature by a balloon was pretty great. It's pretty brilliant, because I was genuinely wondering how they were going to end the film. I was like, are they actually going to kill this thing? And for them to do it with that giant balloon.
And again, it goes back to that Gordy thing, you know, it all started with the balloons coming out, the spectacle. It's enticed by the balloon, and then he consumed it literally, and then it was the creature's demise. I mean, so it's like, and I thought that was a nice reoccurring motif there. But yeah, very cool.
Man, what a great movie, guys. I mean, I know I said it's probably not my favorite Peele movie, but goddamn, even his weakest movie is
Something to talk about.
I do want to see it again now. Laurent did make me want to watch it.
Well, and I just think about this versus half the other movies I've seen this summer, particularly thinking back to our Thor Love and Thunder review. Again, we gave it a good review. It's a very serviceable, enjoyable experience. Yeah. Not perfect, but it's a good time. But man, I've already spent way more time thinking about Nope in the last 3 days than I have Thor Love and Thunder in a week. So I would rather a movie be divisive and make me think about it and wrestle with it for a little while than just something that I just kind of check in, watch, and check out, and just kind of move on. So I think Jordan Peele is delivering that this summer, whereas not a lot of other, at least films of this budget are. So I'll take it. All right, guys. Anything else you would like to say about Nope before we wrap up today's conversation? Laurent?
Final thing. I thought, obviously, we just said about the balloon and exploding I feel like that also is a direct homage to Jaws because of the way that the pressurized tank exploded the shark at the end of the movie. I mean, it's blowing up from a balloon in the middle of the sky. I mean, that feels, if he's referencing Jaws, then the takeout of the creature feels very much connected to that, but at least symbolically. But yeah, I thought that was cool.
Oh man, again, details just really set this one apart. Daniel,
please don't let this film deter you from attempting to capture UFOs on film. I love to see them.
I would love to see them.
Support. So.
Hey, you guys, have I told you about the cloud that sits above my house? Doesn't move.
Also, we have to reference the sequence where the house is being drenched with
blood.
That was,
oh my God.
That's a fantastic sequence. I just that's a horrifying image. Your house is literally being bathed in the blood of the people that this creature has consumed, and then it's blood stained the next day. I was like, I love that. That's an image I couldn't have fathomed that I wouldn't even think to write into a movie, and so I'm glad that we have that in our brains now.
I love the scene where this is when Daniel Kaluuya, I think, realizes, OJ realizes that you can't look at it. Is when it's right above him and he just kind of starts to open the door and he glances up and he hears it make a noise and he's like, nope. I firstly laughed so hard, but also, gosh, that whole sequence was just flawless. The way it was paced, the way it was shot, it was scary with the blood drenched house, the iconography, but also it had humor in there. Just again, great storytelling.
Yeah.
All right, I think that will do it for our review of Nope. Man, this has been so much fun. Now, for our listeners who want to keep up with you and your work and all the cool things you're doing online, where can they follow you at? Daniel Beaucamper, I'll start with you.
Yeah, keep an eye out on the Cinematropolis, of course. That's where a lot of my stuff is nowadays. Broken_Dandy on Instagram and Daniel_Beaucamper on Twitter. But also keep an eye out for my review of Marin Hadaro's A Down Home Meal for These Difficult Times. It's a short story anthology in the next issue of World Literature Today.
I mean, you sold me right there. I'm in. Laurent Chapman?
Oh, if you want to catch me, you will not catch me outside because of the heat. But if you want to catch me online, you can follow me at my name, Laurent Chapman, on Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram at Black Movie Magic OKC, or you can follow me on my reviews on Letterboxd at Cinna_man.
Nice. I appreciate, again, Letterboxd plugs. I think this is the second or third episode I've said it, but download the app. It's great. It's going to change your life for tracking movies. I promise. So you can follow me on Twitter at CMastersTalk. That's letter C Masters Talk. Talking a lot about film, television, video games, tweeting about Better Call Saul a lot because, guys, it's in the final season and it's so good. Also, we got a new Game of Thrones prequel series coming out in August, and I might have some things to say about that. There might even be another podcast. You'll hear about that again, I'm sure, in our next episode. But you can follow that again, me on Twitter. I'm also on Letterboxd at CMastersTalk. That is letter C Masters Talk. And again, if you want to follow the Cinematropolis, head on over to thecinematropolis.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you again when we're back in August. Now, we've got a couple different movies. It's kind of a coin toss on which one we're going to cover first. What I will say is we have Bullet Train and we have a Predator movie. Bullet Train just looks like lots of fun. Predator, in a very tragic manner, is being sent directly to Hulu for some reason. Anyway, I'm very excited about both of these films. And also, I am doing a fun little Obi-Wan recap to cap off the summer. with some Star Wars fans because I don't know, I just felt the need to talk about it because I had things to say about something about Star Wars related for the first time in a while that weren't like anger. So yeah, I'm excited about that. You can look for all those things in August. So some good stuff coming up. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you again next time.